Hello and welcome to the coronavirus update for the 17th of May 2020, where we have just over 4.5 million confirmed cases in the world. Just over 300,000 people have sadly died from this. And today we're mostly going to be looking at the progression of drugs for treating the coronavirus. But before I get on to that, we'll take a quick look at how the world is doing. We'll take Russia. Russia is still looking horrific. And if you take a look at the new confirmed cases per day, they may be starting to level out. I hope that's what it is and that it's not just they're running out of tests or something. Europe looks great, with the exception of the United Kingdom, who looks bloody terrible. And yeah, sure, it's going down, which is good, but it's going down very slowly. When you compare it to countries that were hit much worse, like Spain, where it's gone down very quickly, or Italy. Italy is maybe the next worst in Europe, where they peak out at about 5,000, and it takes about a month for them to halve it, and 2 months and they're down to basically, they're getting low again. Take a look at the United Kingdom over the same time range, and it's barely reduced at all. And yeah, the United Kingdom, the US is their new cases per day is going down, but again, it's going down very slowly. So let's take a quick look at that. This is the exact same data. 500 new cases per day was the state of emergency line. This is the data you were just looking at. Purple is my best guess line from very early on, and it's looking about right. I mean, you're looking at about 2 more months before the US gets down to state of emergency level of new cases per day. And also, whilst we're here, we'll take a look at the projections, well, my model's projections for the total number of dead, which it turns out are remarkably similar to the various models that the US government is relying on, which is amazing considering just how crude these models were. This was the actual data, and that was my best guess for how the number of deaths per day would decrease. And I let the model float about here somewhere. So for about 2 weeks, it's been, this model's not been doing too bad. And that predicted that you'd end up with about 110,000 total dead in America. In reality, this is going to be lowballing it. This is going to really struggle up here. So you're probably looking at 150,000 is realistic, assuming that everyone just doesn't reopen the country and go back to business as normal. You do that, then you just get back aboard the exponent train, which you had here. So, and one last thing, much though I would, for certain, if you were to categorize the countries that did well, then China, South Korea, Japan did well. Iran, actually, is an interesting one, and they've had several outbreaks. So they got it under control fairly well. Then they had a second wave, and now it looks like they're building up for a third wave. Yeah, this is just to give you an idea of what it can look like if you start losing your grip on these things. So, I mean, it may well be that other countries around the world start taking on board these sort of unpredictable curves where you lose control of the virus for various parts. Anyway, so if people don't like China being put in there, whatever. South Korea handled it in an exemplary fashion. Most of Europe, with the exception of the UK, got it under control fairly well. And the UK, United States, and Russia are by far the worst. Now, I would say that a lot of the reason that America had it so bad is not because of the leadership, but because of the lack of leadership in America. That being said, there is this sort of fly in the ointment that Canada, just north of the border, they have a more socialized healthcare system, and there's really not a lot to be had if you take a look at the profile for Canada in terms of new cases per day, normalized for the number of people in the country, versus America. They're pretty samey. But anyway, for certain, Donald Trump has been antagonistic to the competent handling of the virus. Most notably in his desire to pimp easy cures like hydroxychloroquine, that it'll just go away in April like a miracle, that sort of thing, right? These are not useful things to be putting out there. Now, the hydroxychloroquine, again and again, as the studies come out, you're just getting the completely expected result, which is hydroxychloroquine has no benefit. This was always the expected outcome. And why would you expect a drug for malaria to be effective against a virus? I mean, just so you know, malaria, parasite, if I remember rightly, is single-celled. Yeah, parasite. So, and it's one of those weird ones. If it gets into your liver, you're screwed. But if your immune system kills it before you get to the liver, you're okay. If it gets into your liver, you kind of have it for life. Anyway, the thing is, why on earth would you expect a malaria drug against a parasite to be effective against a virus? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, after a while, you can eyeball structures and have a best guess as to how they're going to function. This, it doesn't look like the sort of thing that would interact with RNA. Not greatly anyway. Whereas if you take another potential drug, Remdesivir, this looks much more promising for something that's going to interfere with RNA. So viruses, just so you remember, is basically a single piece of RNA which it injects into your cell and then it goes to work. So if you can inhibit that single piece of RNA, which is super tricky to do because RNA is a required component of the normal functioning of your cells. But anyway, if you can do it, then you can maybe have some effect on the virus. So Remdesivir is a broad spectrum antiviral. So, okay, it's in the right league already. It's made by Gilead, who is also strongly tied with the funding of the institute where I work at. So this would be worth a lot of money to them if it worked. However, and the reason I say that this is the sort of thing that would have an immediate plausibility if you're proposing it as a drug to interfere with RNA, it's because its structure looks kind of RNA-like. You've got the base pair, you've got the sugar, and you've got the phosphate. Looks very like the structure of RNA, which is a base pair, sugar, and a phosphate. So, it's the sort of thing that might molecularly interfere with stuff. Anyway, so there's a study published in Lancet, come on, and you come today, and where are we? Remdesivir was not associated with statistically significant clinical benefits, which again, kind of expected. The mere fact that it has some immediate plausibility just from its general kind of structure, the chances of it actually being effective against a specific virus are crazy remote. Anyway, so yeah, that's not looking promising. Nowhere near as not promising as hydroxychloroquine, which I should remind you is the one that Trump was posting about having 30 million doses of. Not quite sure what they're going to do with it now, but also other things that Trump has said which are not really productive is this complete flipping of the story for whatever the political requirements at the moment are. So he will quite happily say that the previous administration left the cupboards bare, whereas earlier in the year he was saying that the CDC the USA had been rated the best prepared country for a pandemic, and now he's going around saying that the cupboards were bare. These things are just not compatible. It's basically not useful. Anyway, so the Lancet also published another thing basically saying the CDC, Center for Disease Control, had been completely hobbled by the political machinations of the administration, where and you can sort of see it that the CDC was once regarded as the gold standard for disease detection and control. How did the agency that was the first point of contact for many national health authorities facing a public health threat become so ill prepared to protect the public's health? Which is more or less spot on. There has been no centralized response of the federal government to the coronavirus. They basically said it's down to the states to get their own stuff and to organize their own plans. And in the meantime, Trump's been pushing things like hydroxychloroquine, which were never going to work. Anyway, the bizarre thing is none of this has really affected his approval rating. You get headlines like this: his approval rating plummets to 41%. Well, it was always at about 40%. And in fact, maybe not even that. So I had two things here. I had his... if you take a look at Trump's approval rating for handling the coronavirus, it's largely the same as his approval rating, which is kind of locked in. This doesn't change. This was his little boost at the beginning of the coronavirus, and now it's kind of gone back to wherever it was before. Apparently people just don't greatly care. This is not something that has changed how they view the president. I kind of see things differently. For me, it would have been nice if the CDC had had a federal response and that the United States had handled itself at least as well as, say, for instance, Germany or Italy or Spain. Right? You would have expected the United States to have handled itself at least this competently. Anyway, there's one last thing that I really did want to push today, which is that Potholer54 has a new video out, which I just can't recommend you watch enough. In that he goes through and debunks some of the most repeated myths about the origin of the coronavirus. And this one's a sort of beauty of his that there's this, loads of people were saying there's this virus lab that researches deadly viruses, and it's only 300 meters from the market where the virus is thought to have originated. It turns out it's not actually a virus research center at all. It's basically their equivalent of the CDC. which, yeah, this is more like administrative offices, and the virus research lab is like 10 kilometers away or something. So yeah, absolute props to Potholer, and I just can't recommend that you watch this video enough. So with that, I will say thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, and see you next time.